Welcome back to Elevate Inspiration for Sunday School. This is our faith series. We are in our lesson 2, which is entitled, Why Are You Afraid? Think about that question for a minute. Why are you afraid? Now, this is an honest inquiry into what really caused fear. We know that people experience fears of various kinds like agoraphobia, which is open space, or claustrophobia, which is the fear of small space. My fear, and I can admit it, is ornithophobia, which is the fear of bears. Correction, the fear of birds. Yes, I remember the movie Birds, and for some reason, I have a fear of birds, and it is called ornithophobia. All right, so let's get into our lesson. First, I want to introduce you to the setting. Just imagine the setting takes place on the Sea of Galilee. Now, if we will measure this particular sea or this lake, it is 12 miles north and south, 7.5 miles east and west. So this is more like a lake instead of a sea. Our Lake Erie in the United States is 150 times as large as the Sea of Galilee. Now, on many occasions, the Sea of Galilee is named as the Sea of Tigris. Now, this sea is really known for its fishing. So the disciples of Jesus, remember now, some of them were fishermen. So they were very familiar with this body of water. And what actually took place on this body of water was not alarming. But on this particular occasion, it was very, very alarming to the point that they became fearful. Our first outline is entitled A Perilous Situation. This is taking place from Matthew 8:23 and 24. So the first verse, which is the 23rd verse, tells us that Jesus entered into a boat and his disciples followed him. And while rowing to the other side, it says a great tempest arose on the sea. In other words, a storm came. And this is called a lilac. So these storms originated occasionally because of this. It's more like the sea is more like in a valley, and we have mountains on the east and the west side. This storm actually comes from the west. And it was an unusual storm, but if you notice here, at the end of verse 24, it says, where was Jesus? He was asleep. That's interesting. While the storm is out raging on the outside, Jesus is asleep. From those two verses, I would like for you to consider this question, just something to think about. Under what circumstances should you allow another person's fear to become your own, and why? So Matthew 8:25 and 27 gives us the act of deliverance. We see a cry of helplessness from the disciples in verse 25 by saying, Lord, save us. We are perishing. So their skill set was unable to deliver them from this great storm that has arisen while on the sea. And if you notice the authoritative word that Jesus said in verse 26, why are you fearful, O you of little faith? And then he rose and rebuked the winds and sea, and there was a great calm. And now in Matthew, the 27th verse, we see a response of amazement when these men who are his disciples, who have actually seen the miracles that he has already done, they see that he is able to calm the sea, calm the wind. And they said this, who can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him? What an amazing response we see by his disciples. Okay, so let's analyze these verses here. I would like to look at it from a standpoint that fear is a God-given emotion. But how do we know when our reaction of fear is natural compared to the lack of faith? So if you think about it, in the disciples' mind, they should have realized that prior to them getting in the boat, there was an interaction between Jesus and the centurion. And the centurion had asked Jesus, "Come and heal my servant who is sick of the palsy." And he wanted to go, but the centurion said, "You don't have to come. You can just speak the word." And Jesus makes a statement that he has not seen great faith among the children of Israel. So the question is, when is a reaction to fear is natural compared to the lack of faith? Because in the verse, Jesus says to his disciples, "Because of ye have little faith." Little faith. He actually says this 5 times. Even he says that last week in our last lesson about little faith. So if they, the disciples, had much faith, they could trust that Jesus would act for them, even if he did not act immediately. The fight should have resulted in showing more courage when facing a situation like they are facing right now. But Jesus' words here challenged them to let their faith grow to fit the magnitude of his power and his gracious goodwill to use on their behalf. How often do we realize that? How often do we need to let things go and not react in our fear, but react in our faith? Don't react because of fear, but react because of faith. Later, Jesus will use Matthew 17 and 20 and talks about faith as a grain of a mustard seed could move a mountain. However, little faith has potential, but in this case, fear weakened it. Let me say that again. Little faith has potential, but in this case, fear weakened it. My lesson learned from this particular topic is, why do you fear? Typically the things that make us most afraid are those that threaten us in some way because we cannot control them. Instead of praying first, we try our best to gain control. But at the end, we recognize that our control is very limited. So there is a superior alternative to control over the circumstances. You see, that alternative is to reverse those priorities. Because Jesus gave his life for us, we can truly trust him to do for us what he did for the 12 men of little faith in that small ship and more. You see, Psalms 91, 1-3 reminds us, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge, my fortress, my God. In him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence." Hey, you all really enjoyed this. This has been great. Our thought to remember is, allow the Lord to grow your faith and silence your fear. And let me repeat that again. Allow the Lord to grow your faith and silence your fears. Hey, we have our Sunday school discussion. As you look in the right-hand corner, it starts at Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The meeting ID number is 642-382-0755, and the passcode is CU123. Like I always say, see you in Sunday school.